Hello and welcome to Chillin' Solo, where I play solo modes of board games so that you can see how the solo modes work and what they play like, and hopefully be able to show you how much fun you can have just chilling solo with a board game. Or in today's case, will be a card game because we're going to be playing Marvel Champions today. Hopefully over the next little while I'll be doing multiple videos to show you all the content that comes in the core box. The idea is I'll be playing all of the different heroes to show you how they all work. At least in the next few videos, I'll be using all those heroes to go up against the same villain. So in this case, that villain will be Rhino, as he is deemed to be the easiest villain from the core set. So we'll use all the different heroes to go up against Rhino, just so I can show you how those heroes work and interact, and the different aspects that come in the core box and how they work with different heroes. And then after that, hopefully we'll expand a bit more and move on to the harder villains and do a bit of deck building and that sort of thing. But I will come to that if and when we manage to get to it. And today I'll be playing Peter Parker Spider-Man with the aspect of justice, as is advised in the core set. We'll just be using the deck that's pre-built in the core set as it comes. But just to give a quick overview of how you make up a deck. When you make up a deck for a hero, first of all, it's made up of that hero's specific hero cards. So each hero will come with 15 hero specific cards that will always be included in their deck when you choose to play that particular hero. So Spider-Man here comes with 15 specific Spider-Man cards. They must be in his deck when you play with Spider-Man. Added to that deck, then, you will choose one aspect out of the 4 that are in the core set. In this case, we're playing Justice, and you get to choose from a various array of Justice-specific cards that you can add into your deck. To go along with that, then, you can also add basic cards, which are cards that will be used in any deck that you build if you choose to do so. Basic cards are not restricted to anybody, so regardless of what aspect you're playing or what hero you're playing, you can always include basic cards in your deck. And out of those 3 options, you make up a deck of 40 to 50 cards. Like I said, I haven't made up my own deck here. I've just gone off what the core set advises that you play straight out of the box. So we'll just go ahead with that today. So how a game of Marvel Champions works is that we'll be playing a number of rounds until either we win or the villain wins. And we win in one particular way, and that is by defeating the villain. And the villain can win in 2 different ways, one being he defeats us, or he completes his main scheme. So each round is broken down into 2 different phases. We have the hero phase and then the villain phase. So the hero phase is first, in which we are able to play cards from our hand to do various effects. We can trigger actions that we may have on the table in front of us, or do different things, use different characters that may be on the table to do different things. And once we have completed the hero phase, then we go into the villain phase, where they will retaliate and do bad stuff back to us. In order to play cards from your hand, if we have a look at an example of a card here, in the top left corner will be the cost to pay for that card. In this case, we need to pay 3 resources to pay for Jessica Jones to come into play. And we do that by discarding other cards from our hand with printed resources on them. If we look at the bottom left corner of Jessica Jones here, this is where the resources will be printed. So Jessica Jones has 1 resource on her card. We cannot use this resource to pay for Jessica Jones. The resources must come from other cards that are in our hand. If we want to pay for Jessica Jones, we could, for example, take these 3 cards from our hand, each with 1 resource each on them. We discard these to pay 3 resources, and Jessica Jones can come into play. So that's how we pay for cards. Our deck is made up of a variety of different cards. So first off, with Jessica Jones, we have allies. Underneath the cost tells you what kind of card it is. So in this case, we have an ally. When we play allies, they come into play and just go onto the table in front of us for us to be able to use during the hero phase, whether that be for basic stats or any special abilities that they might have. And they will stay in play until they are forced to be discarded in some way. And you'll see how that happens during the game. The next kind of card we have is a support card. So we have Aunt May here as a support card, as it shows underneath the cost there. Support cards, similar to ally cards, come into play onto the table and stay in play until they are discarded in some way. And these support cards usually give us extra boosts to different things, or usually extra actions that we may be able to do. So in this case, we can use Aunt May as an action to heal Peter Parker. But yeah, they'll come in with different sorts of actions and effects that will help us to defeat the villain. The next kind of card we have is an upgrade card. Similar again to allies and supports in the sense that they will come into play and stay in play until they're discarded in some way. But upgrade cards are usually there to, as the name suggests, upgrade our characters in some sort of way, whether they boost stats or maybe negatively affect the villain, different things like that. The next kind of card we have is an event card. Event cards, once they are played, we do the effect of the card as printed on the card itself, and then we would just immediately discard that card. It does not stay in play. It is just discarded once used. And the final card we have is a resource card like this. Resource cards, the majority of them don't have any sort of special effects. They just provide us with extra resources. So as you can see in this card, it provides us with 2 resources rather than the 1 resource that is printed on most other cards. So as well as playing cards, we can use various characters we may have in play to use their basic stats to do different things. So if you have a look at Jessica Jones, she has a thwart stat and an attack stat. To use one of these stats, we would exhaust Jessica Jones by turning her sideways and choosing one of the 2 basic stats to use. If we use the thwart stat, that is the way that we will remove these tokens from the main scheme of the villain to try and keep his scheming under control so that we don't lose that way. So in this case, she would thwart for a value of 1, meaning we could remove 1 token from this card. If we were to use the attack stat, we would just be doing damage to Rhino, and that 2 damage would go straight onto Rhino, knocking his health down here by 2. While we are in alter ego form for our hero, he has a recovery stat. In this case, we can see he has a recovery stat of 3. If we were to exhaust Peter Parker to use his recovery stat, that would allow us to recover 3 hit points worth of health. Once per hero phase, we are allowed to change forms. So we can change from Peter Parker into Spider-Man. But if we do that this hero phase, we are not allowed to change back to Peter Parker until the next hero phase. As you can see, while we're in our hero phase, we have 3 basic stats. We have thwart and attack, just as Jessica Jones does, but we also have the defense stat, which we can use during the villain phase to possibly defend against incoming attacks if we wish to do so. As we said, we can exhaust Spider-Man to use one of his basic stats to thwart or attack during the hero phase. If we do that, we can no longer use any of these stats for the rest of that hero phase while Spider-Man is exhausted, but we are still able to use any special abilities that may be printed on the card. So we go through the hero phase playing cards, activating characters, activating actions until we have nothing left to do or choose to stop activating anything because we feel we need to do so. And that at the end of the hero phase, then we will ready any cards that are exhausted. We would ready Spider-Man, ready Jessica Jones, and then we draw back up to our hand size. Now our hand size depends on which form we are in. So if we have a look at Spider-Man here, a bit closer, at the bottom of the card, it tells us what our hand size is and what our hit points are. So hit points are 10. So our hit point dial here is set to 10. And our hand size is 5. If we flip over to Peter Parker, hit points are still the same. Hit points don't change with what form you're in. But our hand size has now gone up to 6. So this only comes into play at the end of the hero phase when you're drawing a new hand of cards. Depending on which form we're in, we'll draw up to that hand size. So if we're staying in hero form now, we will draw up to 5 cards. And that ends the hero phase. We then move on to the villain phase. The first step of the villain phase is to advance his scheme. So we have a look at this scheme card. In the top left corner here is a number that tells us how much threat needs to be on this card in order for this stage of the scheme to be completed. Now this one says 7 with a little person next to it, meaning that there needs to be 7 tokens per player on this card in order for the stage to complete. So in this case, in a solo game, only 7 threat tokens need to be on the card in order for the stage to complete. At the bottom here, in the little square, there's a number that tells us how much threat starts on the card when the card comes into play. In this case, it's a 0, so no threat will start at the beginning of the game. But this number then in the triangle arrow box above it tells us how much threat will get added at the beginning of every villain phase. So for Rhino's scheme, 1 threat per player will get added at the beginning of every villain phase. So at the start, we will add 1 threat on to the main scheme. After that, the villain will activate against us. And the villain will activate in one of 2 different ways depending on what form we are in. So as we are currently in hero form, Rhino will try and attack us. And to carry out an attack, we look at his basic attack stat, which is 2. We then flip over the top card of his deck and see if there are any boost icons on that card. Any boost icon that is revealed will add 1 strength to his attack for each icon. So as an example, if Rhino was to attack now, he would attack for a base of 2. We reveal the top card of the deck, look at the bottom right here, that shows 1 boost icon, so that adds 1 to his attack for an attack of 3. And that card gets discarded. So he would do 3 attack to us, meaning we take 3 damage. However, before we reveal the boost card, we have the option of defending against the attack. So if we were to put this back on top, for example, Rhino is activating against us and he's about to attack us with a base value of 2. So we know he's going to hit us for at least 2 and possibly more with a boost card. So we have the option of defending, using one of our characters to defend the attack. So if I chose to defend with Spider-Man, I would exhaust him, adding my defense value to the defense of this attack. So Rhino then would attack for 2. We reveal his boost card, which is an extra 1 icon. So he is doing 3 total damage. We have defended for 3, so we take no damage. We negate that. If he had done more damage, so if Rhino had done 4 attack, for example, we would defend for 3. The extra 1 we would take as damage. However, we need to note now that Spider-Man is exhausted. The characters and cards do not ready until the end of the hero phase. So now Spider-Man will be exhausted for my next hero phase, meaning I won't be able to use him to thwart or attack with his basic stats during the next hero phase. I could also, instead of defending with Spider-Man, defend with one of my allies. So I could defend with Jessica Jones. If I was to do so, I would exhaust Jessica Jones. Now you notice that Jessica Jones doesn't have a defense value. She is just going to take the hit that is coming in from Rhino. So Rhino is attacking for 2 plus the 1 boost for 3. This value here tells us what Jessica Jones's hit points are. So she has 3 hit points. That attack then would defeat Jessica Jones, sending her to our discard pile. If we were defending with Jessica Jones and the damage incoming was more than Jessica Jones's health, so if Rhino had attacked for 4 damage instead of 3, she would still get defeated, obviously, as her hit points have been exceeded, but that extra 1 damage does not spill over onto Spider-Man. Jessica Jones just absorbs all of the damage incoming and is defeated that way. If we were in alter ego form, the activation the villain would make is a scheme in activation, meaning we look at the scheme value he has on his card, which in this case is a 1. Again, we flip over a boost card to add to the value. So this boost card would add an extra 1. So 1 plus 1 for 2, meaning we add 2 extra threat tokens to the scheme card, advancing his scheme. Because we are not Spider-Man anymore trying to stop him, so he is free to scheme as he pleases. After the villain is activated, we then move on to the encounter step of the villain phase, where we will draw the top card of the encounter deck, flip it over, and do whatever it says on the card. And they can do various different things, like, for example, this card says has a when revealed effect, so when we reveal it, we would do whatever it says on that card. There may be minions in this deck that come into play, engage with us to try and attack us and scheme against us, that we may have to deal with. So various different things will happen that are not good. So after we've dealt with the encounter card, it will come back to us in the hero phase, where we get to go all over again, playing cards, activating actions, and we keep going back and forth until one of the 3 endgame conditions is met. So we would win if we are able to completely defeat Rhino. And in order to do that, we need to essentially defeat him twice. So if we look at the Rhino card here, in the top right corner, there's a number 1, meaning this is the first stage of Rhino. So after we've defeated stage 1 of Rhino, he will get discarded, and stage 2 of Rhino will come into play. And if we can defeat stage 2 of Rhino, then we win the game. Rhino will win by either reducing our hit points down to 0 and defeating us, or by advancing his scheme enough that 7 or more tokens are added onto this scheme card. So that's an overview of how the game works. We'll dive into a game now, and any extra rules that may come up during the gameplay, I'll explain as and when they show. But let's get into it. I'll just tidy up and reset the game now, and I'll be back with you in just a second. Hello and welcome back. We're about to start our playthrough of Marvel Champions. So just before we start, we're going to have a quick look at this scheme card here. This is the other side of the scheme card, where it shows us how to set up the villain deck. So Rhino's scheme is called the break-in. Comes with a little bit of flavor text here that says Rhino is attacking a shield facility. And then all this then is telling us how we make up the villain deck. So in this case, we're using Rhino specific cards. So each villain will come with a certain number of villain specific cards that will get added into the deck. Also added into the deck is a standard encounter set. This standard encounter set is always used in every villain that you play with, unless specifically told not to. But pretty much every villain you play with will have this standard encounter set included in their deck. And then in the case of Rhino, it says to add 1 modular encounter set. So the core set comes with a number of different modular encounter sets. You can choose which modular encounter set you add into the villain deck when you create it. However, in this case, it recommends that we use the bomb scare modular set, which is what I have done. So in the villain deck, we have Rhino cards, we have the standard encounter cards, and we have the bomb scare encounter cards. And at the bottom then is any special setup rules that may be in play for this scenario. In this case, it just said advance this to stage 1B. So we're on 1A, we advance it to stage 1B, which is this side of the card. An extra little bit of flavor, it says Rhino is trying to smash through the facility wall and steal a shipment of vibranium. You must stop him. And then it tells us what happens if this stage gets completed. So in this case, it says if this stage is completed, the players lose the game. So we can't let this stage of the threat of the scheme be completed, otherwise we lose. So let's get into the game. I've already drawn my hand of 6 cards because we are in alter ego form. Now before you start, you are allowed to do a mulligan, which means that I can look through my hand of cards, and if there's any cards I don't want to have or feel like I won't be able to use, I can discard any number of them into the discard pile and redraw that many into my hand. And I can do this once at the beginning of the game if I wish to. I think I might. I'm going to discard these 2 cards, and I will draw 2 new ones. Lovely. Oh, Daredevil's out now. Oh, might just bring out some allies. Right. So, if we have a look at Peter Parker, he has a special ability printed on his card. It's a scientist ability, which says is a resource ability. It says generate a mental resource limit once per round. So essentially, Peter Parker has given us a free resource to use to play a card while we are in alter ego form. we cannot generate this resource, then flip over to hero form and use that resource to play another card. It has to be used right now when we generate it as Peter Parker. So, I don't need it really for the cards I have. Because, for example, this event card I have here, Swinging Web Kick. If we take a little closer look, in the text box it says that this is a hero action, which means we can only play this card if we are in hero form. It specifically says hero action. So I couldn't use this free resource to pay for this card because I need to be in hero form to play it. But any card that doesn't say I have to be in hero form, I could play. But I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm going to discard these 2 resource cards. They both have 2 resources on them, so that's 4 resources. Discard them to bring in Daredevil into play. Now, Daredevil has 2 thwart and 2 attack, and he has a special ability which says response. Now, a response means that the special ability will trigger when a specific thing happens. So in this case, it says a response after Daredevil thwart. So when Daredevil uses his thwart ability, we can deal 1 damage to an enemy. So that's quite nice. Then I am going to discard these 2 cards with 1 resource on them each to pay for Black Cat, another ally. Now she comes in with 1 thwart and 1 attack, and her ability reads, Forced Response. After you play Black Cat, discard the top 2 cards of your deck and add each card with a printed mental resource discarded this way into your hand. So I'll discard the top 2 cards, 1 and 2. Now, just to have a quick look at these resources here. You notice that the resources on these cards are different. Most of the time, it doesn't matter what the resources are unless a card specifically says so. So when we pay for cards, it doesn't matter what resource we pay with, unless the card we're playing specifically says something in that regard. So Black Cat in this case said, if we had discarded any cards with this particular mental resource on it, we would have taken them into our hand, but we discarded these 2 resources, so we don't keep them. This resource here, the green one with a little explosion symbol, is a wild resource, which can be substituted for any resource that you want. However, in this case, we can't use that as any resource we want because it specifically says that the card with the printed resource gets added to our hand, and that's not printed as a mental resource, so we can't add that into our hand. So, unfortunate, but that's not the end of the world. So now I'm going to use my once per hero phase to change form into Spider-Man. I'm going to exhaust Spider-Man to use his basic attack to do 2 damage to Rhino, knocking him down to 12. And then I'm going to use Black Cat to use her basic attack. Now, if we have a quick look at Black Cat before I use the ability, you notice that on her thwart value, there's a little explosion symbol underneath that. That symbol means that if I was to use Black Cat to thwart, she would remove 1 thwart from one threat from the scheme, but then she would also take 1 consequential damage back. That's what that symbol means. Now, if we look at her attack, that attack doesn't have that symbol on it, so we can use her attack freely without taking damage back. So I'm going to exhaust Black Cat to use her attack to deal 1 extra damage to Rhino. I don't think I'm going to use Daredevil yet, because Daredevil's ability lets us thwart and do damage at the same time. So I'm going to wait until we've got some threat on the scheme before I use Daredevil. I've got no cards left in my hand. I've used all of the characters I want to use and all the cards I want to use, so we'll end the hero phase there by readying our cards and then drawing back up to our hand size, which is 5 for being in Spider-Man form, in hero form. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we move on to the villain phase. So first step is to advance the scheme. We add 1 threat onto the scheme. Then Rhino is going to activate against us. Now, if we have a quick look at Spider-Man's special ability, Spider-Man's special ability is Spider Sense. It's an interrupt, so when the villain initiates an attack against us, we get to draw a card. So he's initiating an attack against us now. We get to draw a card, and then he is going to attack us. So he's going to attack us for a base value of 2 plus a boost card. Now we have the choice now to defend. I don't think I want to defend. I'm pretty healthy, so I'm happy to take the hit. So he's going to attack for 2, reveal a boost card for another 1 boost. So we take 3 damage. 1, 2, 3, down to 7 hit points. Okay, then we go into the encounter step by drawing an encounter card, revealing it, and doing whatever it says. So this is advance. When revealed, the villain schemes. So again, the villain's going to scheme now using his scheme value in the same vein as the attack, but this is to add threat onto the main scheme. So he has 1 scheme, reveal a boost card for another 2. That's 3 threat getting added onto the main scheme. He's at 4 out of 7. Already got quite far. That ends the villain phase, and now it's back to us. Let's have a look at what cards we have. Okay. Interesting. So, I'm going to use this resource card. This is the Power of Justice. This is a special resource card because it comes with a special power. It says that we double the number of resources this card generates while we're paying for a Justice card, which is a yellow card. Now, I didn't explain the aspect so much, but all the yellow cards in my deck are the Justice specific cards. And the aspect of Justice is tailored towards managing the threat on the schemes. So Justice is a way of helping us to remove threat from different schemes or manage it in some sort of way. And the other aspects are tailored to different areas of the game. So the aggression aspect, as you can imagine, is based on doing damage to the enemies. The protection aspect is to do with manipulating defensive attacks during the villain's phase. So you could do damage and remove threat during the villain phase by defending in certain ways. And the leadership aspect is a way of manipulating and sort of improving our allies and doing cool things with them. So I'm going to use this Power of Justice card to double the resources of the card that I play. And I'm going to use it to play Surveillance Team, which costs 2. So that 1 resource is doubled to 2. Let me play Surveillance Team. Now, what Surveillance Team does is a support card, so it comes into play, stays in play with us. Discard the Power of Justice. It says that this uses 3 Snoop counters. Now, it says Snoop counters as if the counters are specific to this card, but any card that has a specific name of counters on it just uses these generic counters, essentially. They don't have different counters for different things. We just use generic counters. So this comes into play with 3 counters on it. So we'll take a 3 token there and put it on there. Now, as an action, I can exhaust the Surveillance Team, remove 1 counter to remove 1 threat from the main from any scheme. That's a nice way of helping us to deal with the threat that we have there. Now I want to bring Aunt May into play because she's a good way of helping us heal, but I've also got a swinging web kick here which will do a lot of damage. Or bring Mockingbird out even. No, I want Aunt May. I'm going to discard this Spider Tracer for 1 resource to bring in Aunt May. I'll bring her in over here. So Aunt May is a support card, but she gives us a specific alter ego action. So we need to be in alter ego form before we could use Aunt May, but as an action when we're in alter ego form, we can exhaust Aunt May to heal 4 damage to Peter Parker. Nice way of healing without us having to use Peter Parker's recovery values. So I'm going to use now Surveillance Team, exhaust that to remove 1 token from there, dropping us down to 2 in order to remove 1 threat from the main scheme. And then I'm going to use Black Cat to do a 1 attack onto Rhino. I will use Daredevil to use his thwart ability for 2. Excuse me, so this takes 2 threat off the main scheme. And his special ability says every time we thwart, we get to deal 1 damage to an enemy. So we'll deal another damage to Rhino. But because we use one of these abilities, Daredevil takes 1 hit point of consequential damage. So he's got 1 damage out of his 3 hit points. And then we'll use Spider-Man to do another basic attack for another 2 damage. Rhino is now on 7 hit points. I still have 2 cards in my hand, but I don't have the resources to pay for either of them. I have the option now of discarding any cards that I don't want to keep in my hand. Otherwise, I'll end the villain phase, the hero phase there. I don't think I want to discard any, just in case. So I will ready up all my cards. Ready. And draw back up to my hand size of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Cool. Onto the villain phase. We advance his scheme, adding 1 threat to the main scheme. Then he's going to activate against us. So he's going to attack us because we're in hero form. Again, we'll use our spider sense. He's initiating an attack. We'll use our spider sense to draw a card. Very nice. I'm not going to defend this time again. So he's going to do an attack of 2 plus a boost card. There's no boost icons on this. So we're just going to take 2 damage. But I'm going to use this card here. Or backflip. It costs me nothing, so I can play it for free without any resources. And it's an interrupt defense card. So this happens during the defense part of the game. It says when you would take any amount of damage from an attack, prevent all of that damage. So I'll just use that and take no damage. And we move on to the encounter step, and we'll draw an encounter card and see what it says. This is called Stampede. When revealed, if we were in alter ego form, which we're not, this card would gain Surge. Now what that means is if a card gains Surge, we just discard it and draw a new card in its place. But we are in hero form, so when revealed in hero form, Rhino attacks us. And if a character is damaged by this attack, the character is stunned. Okay, so he's going to attack us again. He's initiating another attack. We get to draw a card because this isn't limited to once per phase or once per round. We get to draw another card from that attack. And he's going to do another attack, so we'll do a base of 2 plus 1 from that boost card. That's 3 damage, and luckily we have another backflip in our hand, so we're going to discard that backflip and take no damage, meaning that because we took no damage, we don't get stunned from the effect of the card. So that was quite nice. Now it's back to us for the hero phase. So I am going to discard this card as a resource to pay for this web shooter. The web shooter is an upgrade card. It comes with 3 web counters on it. Again, not web specific counters, just 3 counters. And as a hero resource, I can exhaust web shooter, remove 1 counter from it, and it generates me a wild resource. So that comes into play with 3 counters. Nice bit of resource generation going on there. Okay. I'm going to use the web shooter now, exhaust it, remove 1 token, and that generates me 1 resource. I'll pay another 2 resources for 3 resources in total to play Swinging Web Kick. This is a hero action, so I can only play it if I'm in hero form, which I am. It says deal 8 damage to an enemy. So I'll deal 8 damage to Rhino. He's on 7. That drops him down to 0, and we've completed stage 1 of Rhino. So Rhino is stage 1 is discarded. And we bring in Rhino stage 2. And you'll notice his stats have changed slightly. His scheme is still 1, but his attack now has gone up to 3, so he's a bit tougher. And he's got an effect in his box here that says, when revealed, we search the encounter deck and discard pile for the break-in and take-in side scheme and reveal it, and then shuffle the encounter deck. So we need to find a side scheme in his deck called break-in and take-in. It's not in the discard pile, so it's going to be in his deck somewhere. Have a look through here. There it is, break-in and take-in. Shuffle his deck quickly. Okay. So this is a side scheme. Looks very similar to the main scheme. We look on the bottom here, it tells us how much threat comes into play on this card in the square. So 2 threat is going to start on this card. And then the ability reads, when revealed, we place an additional 1 threat per player here. So 3 threat is going to come in on this card. And then that symbol in the middle of the card there means that while this side scheme is in play, we are going to draw an extra encounter card during the encounter phase. So this goes here next to the other schemes. 3 threat gets added on it. And when that 3 threat is removed, the card is discarded. So we want to try and get rid of that threat because we don't want to be drawing extra encounter cards if we can help it. Okay, so in that case, I'll use Daredevil next to use his thwart ability to thwart 2 threat from that side scheme, leaving it with 1. I take 1 consequential damage, and I also get to do 1 damage to an enemy because of my special power. Oh, I haven't reset his health. If we have a look at Rhino's health here, his hit points are on the bottom here, and his hit points are always related to the number of players. So in this case, his hit points are going to be 15 per player. So we'll reset his dial to 15 now. And then he takes 2 hit points from, oh no, 1 hit point, sorry, from Daredevil's special ability. Then we'll use Black Cat to deal 1 damage. Down to 13. We'll use Spider-Man to do another 2 damage, knocking it down to 11. And we'll use our surveillance team, exhaust that, remove 1 token to remove 1 threat from a scheme. We'll take it off breaking and taking so we can get rid of that now. All the threats gone, so you won't have to draw an extra encounter card. That is the end of us. We have no cards left in our hand. We've used everything on the table that we can, so we'll ready everything up. Ready these. And then we'll move on to the villain phase. We start by advancing threat. Adding 1 on there for 3. Now Rhino's going to be attacking. Oh, I haven't drawn our new hand yet. Let's draw our cards first. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. Rhino's initiating an attack against us, so we get to draw a card with our spider sense. And then we can choose to defend. I don't have a backflip in my hand this time, so I'm going to use Daredevil to defend. So he's only got 1 hit point left. So if I was to keep him around and use him for his ability next time, that consequential damage would kill him. So I'm going to use him as a shield now, since he's only got 1 hit point left. So Rhino is going to attack for a base of 3. We flip over for a boost. There's no boost icons on there, so it's just 3 damage. Daredevil has only 1 hit point left, so he's defeated. Meaning he goes to a discard pile, but like I explained at the beginning of the video, the excess damage does not come on to Spider-Man. Then we back that over a little bit. Then we move on to the encounter step. We'll draw the encounter card, see what we've got. This is False Alarm. It says, when revealed, you are confused. If you're already confused, this card gains Surge. So we're not already confused, we get confused. Let's have a look at the confused card here. The confused card says, the next time this character would thwart or scheme, we discard this status card instead. So this comes onto Spider-Man. So the next time we use Spider-Man to thwart, we don't actually thwart, we just remove that status instead. So he's hindering us from removing threat from his scheme card. Okay. Let's have a look here. Okay, so it's back to us since we've finished the encounter step. We are going to what are we going to do first? We are going to use a web shooter for 1 resource. Use Genius for another 2 resources to play another swinging web kick, which does 8 damage to somebody. We'll use it to do 8 damage to Rhino. That puts him down to 3 hit points. We will then use Black Cat to deal 1 damage. She doesn't take consequential damage back. And then we'll use Spider-Man to do a basic attack of 2. So even though he's confused, he can still use his attack, just can't use his thwart. That knocks the last 2 hit points off Rhino, and we have won. Well, that was a fairly straightforward playthrough. Won it with very little resistance, to be fair. So hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully now over the next few videos we'll see some other heroes, see how they work. Hopefully be able to see a bit more of different effects and different things that we didn't see in this game, but we didn't see any minions come into play this time. But hopefully over the next few videos we'll see a bit more of how the game works. And hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next video. Goodbye.